name is Prabhu Mali, and I am the chairman. And Alana Hume is the timekeeper. The adjudicator is Miss Horton. The topic of this debate is that Mack Horton's protest should be lauded. The affirmative team seated to my right is from Adelaide High School, and the negative team seated to my left is Pembroke Middle School. The speaking time for this debate is 4 minutes. A single warning bell will sound 1 minute before the speaking time, and a double bell will sound at the speaking time. A continuous bell may be rung 30 seconds after the speaking time, in which case the speaker must sit down immediately. Please ensure that your mobile phones and other electronic devices are switched off. I declare this debate open and call upon the first affirmative speaker, Tara Meneses.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for tonight's debate is that Mack Horton's protest should be lauded. We define this event as Mack Horton, an Australian swimmer, refusing to stand at the winner's podium with his Chinese competitor Sun Yang at the 2019 FINA, International Swimming Federation's Swimming World Championships held in South Korea. We define should be lauded as needing to be highly praised or admired. We, the affirmative team, strongly believe that this statement is true. My first point is that Mack Horton's protest was a vital step in exposing issues within the framework committees of FINA, the International Swimming Federation, and WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency. FINA allowed Sun Yang to compete in Gwangju while he was under investigation from WADA for using drugs to cheat. Mack Horton needed to make this statement to make people aware of these issues. Sun Yang broke multiple drug testing protocols, which included urinating unaccompanied. He made testers wait an hour outside his house before being tested and questioned their validity. Not only this, Sun's mother allegedly ordered security guards at a local clubhouse to destroy vials of Sun Yang's blood, according to multiple eyewitnesses. FINA cleared Sun Yang of all of this, ruling in Sun's favour at a January 3rd hearing. Can we really let Sun Yang get away with this? Mack Horton did what he needed to do to be able to bring to light this inappropriate behaviour. What Sun Yang did was unacceptable. Sun Yang had been convicted in the past, and no one knew about the current ongoing investigation going into Sun Yang's suspicious behaviour. Imagine if Mack Horton hadn't protested. Would Sun Yang continue getting away with cheating? It was extremely important for Mack Horton to protest, or else the whole situation would have been swept under the rug to the public. And FINA would not be currently reviewing the implementations of their regulations. Now to my final point. Mack Horton stood up for what he believed in, taking a stand in front of the entire world, knowing that he would face repercussions. Let's take, for example, the Black Power salute at the 1968 Mexico Olympics. Tommy Smith and John Carlos were protesting against the treatment of African Americans in their own country. Australian Peter Norman gave his gloves to them so they were able to make this political statement. They made the Black Power salute, and nowadays they are looked as idols, brave campaigners, but in 1968 they were vilified and mocked. They received hundreds of death threats and were penalised by the International Olympic Committee. Both stood up for what they believed in, and both were punished for their actions. If history is any indicator, Mack Horton will be looked on as a hero in years to come. Another example is Greta Thunberg talking in front of the United Nations about the climate crisis at only 15 to stand up for what she believed was right. Look what these simple actions initiated. These people started global movements, making a change within the community by rising up against the world's agenda. If they had not protested, the world would look very different today. Mack Horton did this exact thing. He did a courageous act which became an outcry for tougher regulations on doping and issues within the FINA committee. Great Britain's Duncan Scott staged a second protest against Sun Yang, very similar to Mack Horton's 2 nights later. Many athletes are praising him for his actions. He not only stood up for himself, but all of his fellow athletes, which our second speaker will explain later in her speech. He did what many couldn't. He is a perfect example of a brave role model. Shouldn't we praise Mack Horton just as we have praised other trailblazing leaders? In conclusion, we the affirmative team wholeheartedly believe that Mack Horton's protest should absolutely be praised, as his actions have shown fearlessness and the ability to speak out when necessary. Thank you.
the first negative speaker, Georgia Tam.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for our debate is that Mack Horton's protest should be lauded. We, the negative team, strongly believe that this statement is false. We agree with the definition given by the affirmative team. The affirmative team has tried to tell you that Mack Horton was being a good role model for standing up for what he believes in. This statement may be valid, but when thought about in finer detail, we are sure that this statement is utterly false. Mack Horton is displaying unlike sportsmanship and is role modelling this to younger audiences. We have all been told at some point in our lives to always shake hands with the opposing team and at the end of our sports match. What kind of behaviour is Mack Horton teaching his many fans and followers? The first affirmative speaker has also tried to say that Mack's protest would stop doping. This is misguided. Doping is unfair on other athletes. We are not disputing that doping is unfair, but we are disputing that there is no proof that Sun Yang is actually engaged in doping recently. Just because he served a suspension for doping in 2014 does not automatically imply he is guilty now. Tonight, as first speaker, I will be highlighting 2 points. Firstly, how Horton unfairly denied Yang natural justice, the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. Secondly, lauding Mack's actions highlights our double standards because another Australian swimmer was also accused of doping but treated differently. Our second speaker will argue how Mack Horton's actions exemplified disrespect to China and the sport of swimming, and how he was only protesting because he did not win. Our third speaker will rebut and sum up our team case. Now to my first point. Let me remind everyone, Sun Yang has not been proven guilty yet. Every person has a right to the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. In January 2019, the official published report of the International Swimming Federation's Doping Tribunal actually cleared Sun Yang of wrongdoing. The report cited the following reasons. Firstly, Yang's blood sample was collected by unaccredited officers, making the sample invalid and void by law. Secondly, the doping control officers seriously breached guidelines when taking Yang's blood. They took photos and videos of Yang breaching his confidentiality. Therefore, the tribunal agreed Sun was right in refusing to provide a sample. Taking advantage of a very public world stage, Horton had taken it upon himself to act as Sun Yang's judge, jury, and executioner. This is unjust. To laud Horton's actions harks back to medieval mobs dispensing sham justice. This takes me to my second point. To laud Mack Horton's action at the podium also smacks of hypocrisy. Horton's protest soon highlighted his double standards, because his teammate Shayna Jack was also accused of doping soon after. The proverbial pot calling the kettle black. Horton soon became awfully quiet about Shayna's positive doping result. Horton claimed he no longer wanted to talk about doping in the interests of protecting the Australian team. Swimming Australia officially lauded Horton's stance, but when Shayna Jack's violation was exposed, Swimming Australia announced that doping was a complicated issue that needed mature discussion, trying to have their bob each way. Long ago in 2014, Sun Yang had served a suspension for a doping violation, but this does not naturally mean he is guilty this time. Every person deserves redemption. After all, we still cheered Steve Smith and David Warner at the recent Ashes test just after their suspension for ball tampering last year. So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, Sun Yang deserves the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. If we laud Yang's unfair treatment by Mack Horton, but give his teammate Shayna Jack the benefit of the doubt, we risk embarrassing double standards and hypocrisy. It reminds us of the famous words of Jesus in John 8:7. He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. Thank you.
call upon the second affirmative speaker, Heidi Brickman.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's debate. As you know, the topic of this evening's debate is that Mack Horton's protest should be lauded, which the affirmative team undoubtedly believes that this statement is true. As second speaker, I will be convincing you of how everyone is entitled to freedom of speech, the importance of protesting in a safe and calm manner, and that Mack Horton is standing up for his fellow athletes, which is something that FINA hasn't done. But before I do that, I'd like to point out some flaws in the negative team's arguments. The first negative speaker has stated that Sun Yang has not been proven guilty yet, and that he's clearly not guilty of doping. This is misleading due to the fact that why would Sun Yang ever smash a vial of his blood if he didn't have anything to hide? Not allowing his blood to be taken serves no purpose otherwise to have a situation like this. They also tried to tell you that Shane and Jack was caught cheating only a few weeks later, and that this is ironic for swimming in Australia. But Shane and Jack was given a ban and was not able to compete at the World Championships, while Sun Yang allegedly smashed a vial of his own blood. And for what reason? Because he was trying to hide the fact that he had taken performance-enhancing drugs to help him win against people he hadn't. But he is still allowed to compete. Now to my primary point, that the way Mack Horton protested, it was a safe and calm way. He didn't try to fight Sun Yang. He didn't call him out personally, and he didn't try to personally offend him. By simply not standing on the podium, he stood up for what he believed in. And this is a fantastic example of a good role model. In this day and age, it is incredibly important for children to look up to someone who isn't involved in confrontation. In 1966, the United Nations adopted the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, also known as the ICCPR. In this article, in Article 19, Part 2, states that everyone shall have the right to freedom of expression. This right shall include freedom to seek, receive, and impart information and other ideas of all kinds, regardless of the frontiers. Mack Horton is abiding by the law under human rights, and he is simply not doing anything wrong. Not only is he showing people how to use their human rights, he's showing them how to do so in a respectful manner. Some will say that he's disrespecting China by not standing on the podium. A silent protest should not be considered disrespectful, especially when Sun Yang continually insulted Mack after his silent protest, saying things like "you loser" and encouraging many Chinese citizens to attack Mack Horton over social media. While all this time, Mack Horton has stood back from abuse and stood back from the podium. Now to my second point, that Mack Horton has stood up for all of the athletes who haven't taken drugs to enhance their performance, which is something that FINA has not done. He used the podium to silently voice what he thought of the situation, again, something that FINA has not done. It takes unbelievable amounts of courage and bravery to step off of the podium and stand up for what you believe in. FINA definitely hasn't made it easy to expose drug cheats. Voicing your opinion on social media and having lots of people see it is very hard unless the opinion is brought to light by an organisation like FINA. As The Guardian says, Australian officials spoke with worldwide body FINA and were assured Horton did not face any sanction over his protest. But what about the continuous threats and abuse he received over the internet? This is the real penalty here. In conclusion, Mack Horton should be lauded due to the fact that he's displaying good role modelling skills. He protested in a safe and restful way, and because he had the courage to do something a huge swimming organisation has not. Thank you.
Walker.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for tonight's debate is that Mack Horton's protests should be lauded, and we, the Negatives team, strongly, without a doubt, believe that this statement is false. The affirmative team has tried to tell you that Sun Young has so much evidence against him being a drug chief, and although this may seem valid at first glance, when you think about it more, you can be assured that without a doubt this is false. As Sun has had 3 drug tests, and 2 out of those 3 were invalid tests, as the testers were unqualified to do so. And unless the remaining test was legally confirmed, and it is not evidence, just suspicion. Additionally, the affirmative team has told you that because he smashed his blood sample, it means that he is guilty. This is wrong, as they breached his confidentiality by taking photos of him. And if I were you, I would not want to be breached like this, and if I were, I would not give them my blood sample. The other team has also tried to tell you that Mack Horton has a freedom of speech. We, the Negative team, acknowledge that this is true, as every Australian has the right to a freedom of speech. However, according to ABC News, an international law stops competitors at international competitions like Swimming World Championships, where Mack made his protests, from making any protests. This means that Mack Horton was violating a law when he was representing Australia and protesting. If Mack Horton and the other athletes who applauded him believe that there is not enough action being done about the rule breaking, then how is fair? Mack Horton broke this important rule. If these rules are broken by athletes, then who is to know how many other rules, or even important rules, will be broken? The affirmative team has also claimed that Mack Horton has showed courage for standing up for what he believes in. This is misguided because he should express his opinion only after Sun Yang has been proven guilty, not before. Our first speaker, Georgia, has already stated that Sun Yang is innocent until proven guilty, and that there is a giant double standard, as an Australian swimmer was also accused of doping around the same time. Today, I will be talking to you about how Mack Horton was showing an overall theme of bad sportsmanship by disrespecting China on behalf of Australia, and how he is only protesting when he does not win. Now to my first point. Horton is disrespecting China while representing Australia. As in a press conference Sun did after the race, posted by 9 News, Sun stated, "Disrespecting me is okay, but disrespecting China is very unfortunate, and I felt sorry about that." He is saying this as when somebody competes for a country in something like the Olympics or a world championship, they are representing their country, and the spectators see them as their country. Additionally, according to the law, according to the Sydney Morning Herald, an international law stops competitors from being able to create a demonstration at international sporting competitions, like the Olympics or a world championship. Therefore, what Horton did was actually illegal. And as this is illegal, considering what I have already explained about competitors basically being their countries, this means that the fact that Mack Horton has done something illegal on a world stage looks like the whole of Australia is backing Horton in what he did, even though we all were not. And this is not a good look for Australia. And now to my second point. He has only protested when he has not won or beat Sun Yang. For example, when he came second and Sun came first in the 400-metre free race, he made his protest, although according to the Canberra Times, when Horton swam the 4x200-metre race against Sun and the rest of the Chinese team, Australia won. China missed a record. Horton took his spot on the podium. Why not protest again? Additionally, during the 400-metre free, he tried to win. He lost, and so he stood in the corner and claimed the whole thing was unfair to begin with. So if he really felt this way, why compete in the race against Sun to compete with? So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, Mack Horton's protest against Sun Yang should not be lauded, as he has shown bad sportsmanship by disrespecting China and only protesting when he does not win. Thank you.
I call on the third affirmative speaker, David Farr.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for tonight's debate is that Mack Horton's protest should be lauded. We, the affirmative team, believe that this statement is true. Before I sum up my team case, I will point out some various flaws in the opposition's arguments. The first speaker has attempted to tell you that Mack Horton's protest was simply bad sportsmanship and that his actions should therefore not be praised. But isn't cheating itself the ultimate form of bad sportsmanship? Not only did Sun Yang cheat, but he cheated purposely, administering drugs into his system to gain an advantage over other competitors. And he is not being a bad sport by protesting. Were Tommy Smith and John Carlos bad sports when they gave the Black Power salute at the Mexico City Olympic Games? They stood up for what they believed in. They stood up for what they believed in. Is that bad sportsmanship, I ask you? She also said that Sun should not be treated guilty because of the innocent until proven guilty mentality. We agree with this idea, but Sun Yang has been proven guilty before, and he has served a punishment because of this. Ever since then, Sun Yang has kept his innocence, saying he was taking the drugs that led up to his ban because of a heart condition. If Sun Yang was so sure that he was innocent, wouldn't he have appealed his punishment? Therefore, Sun Yang has kept his innocence in a trial that he has been proven guilty. Surely he will keep his innocence again in a trial that has so far been inconclusive. Why should we trust him? The first speaker also tried to tell you that Shayna Jack's result was contradictory to Mack Horton's protest. But we, the affirmative team, and Mack Horton believe that all competitors should be treated equally when they are caught doping, regardless of nationality, or if it was one of their teammates' protest doping. It's unsportsmanlike and unethical to cheat. It is also really important to note that Shayna Jack was not allowed to compete in the World Championships while under investigation by Swimming of Australia. This is in comparison to Sun Yang, who's been allowed to compete in the World Championships alongside other clean athletes, despite his ongoing investigation that is yet to produce any conclusive evidence. They also spoke about how our first speaker says that Mack Horton's protest would stop doping. She simply did not say that. She merely said that it brought Sun's doping into the light. It was mentioned by the second negative speaker before that you can't break laws at World Championships. Well, while this might be true, does that mean that the Black Power salute is inconsequential, that it shouldn't have been done? Look at the results that has contributed to. The second speaker has accused Mack Horton of disrespecting China. This is an empty insult that holds no proof. When Mack Horton staged his protest, he did not protest against all of China. If Sun Yang's accusation of silently refusing to stand on the podium is disrespecting China, then what about his comment insulting Duncan Scott? 2 days after Mack Horton made his protest, Duncan Scott, a British swimmer, made the same protest. Sun Yang is then captured saying to him, "You loser, I'm winning," according to the ABC and the many cameras surrounding the event. If a silent protest is considered disrespecting China, then what about calling a competitor a loser? Is this humiliating all of Britain? The second speaker has tried to tell you that Mack Horton staged a protest simply because he was upset that he lost. If this were true, then why would Mack Horton have bothered to call out drug cheats in the 2016 Olympics when he won the race, fair and square? His Olympic gold medal was then arguably overshadowed by his own protest. After his protest, there were thousands of comments threatening Mack Horton and his family on social media. According to The Australian, Mack Horton had been commercially hurt through his public stance on anti-doping. There was far more for Mack Horton to lose than there ever was for him to gain. If Mack Horton was truly that upset that he lost, would he really have sacrificed so much to prove his point? Now I will sum up our team's case. Our first speaker spoke to you about how the protest helped bring Sun's doubtful past and the issues into the light, and it showed the issues in the framework of FINA. Our second speaker spoke to you about how Mack Horton's protest was calm and respectful, and how he stood up for all clean swimmers in sport, and how he also used his basic human right of freedom of speech. So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, our team strongly believes that Mack Horton should be lauded. He should be praised for helping raise awareness about drug cheating in sport. Thank you and good night.
I call upon the third negative speaker, Poet Sarandos.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for tonight's debate is that Mack Horton's protest should be lauded. We, the negative team, are conditionally certain that this statement is in fact false. Now, throughout the entire case put forward by the affirmative team, only three main themes were really presented. These themes were it was stopping doping, it was standing up for what he thought was right, and that he had the right to protest. I will now clearly disprove each of these themes, and in doing so, disprove their points and in result their entire team case. The first of their themes put forward by the affirmative team was that Mack Horton's protest should be lauded because it stopped doping. This may be true in some ways, but there are much better ways to stop drug cheats. Although Mack Horton may be standing up for his own opinion and therefore inspiring others to do the same, he is not role modelling a good way to do this. Firstly, he is breaking the rules and regulations of FINA, the committee that is recognised as the Global Federation for International Competition in Water Sports. If he shows to other people that this is fine to break rules to show something you believe in, then why won't children start breaking rules at school to show their beliefs? And why don't religious terrorists start breaking international treaties to show what they believe? Additionally, according to FINA, as in all major sports organisations, our athletes and their entourages are aware of their responsibilities to respect FINA regulations and not use FINA events to make personal statements or gestures. This shows that although Mack Horton was taking a stand against violating the rules and regulations of FINA, he himself was violating the rules, and therefore he can't stand up against somebody else doing them. Additionally, this one protest will not just stop drug cheaters. One Australian decided he didn't want to have a photo taken with someone who he personally believed had taken drugs. And this does not make all drug cheats suddenly decide, I don't want to do this anymore. The second of the themes put forward by Horton's protest was that Mack Horton should be lauded because he was standing up for what he thinks is right. This may seem valid, but if it's thought about in greater depth, it is clear that the statement is not true. While Mack Horton may believe himself that Sun had taken drugs before the race, that was only his personal opinion, as it had not actually been proven by FINA, the International Federation recognised by the International Olympic Committee for administering international competition in water sports. According to the ABC, the results for Sun's drug test are unknown, but this is the fault of the DCA, the doping control assistant. Of the 3 people that went to visit his house, only 1 actually had proper accreditation. The sample was collected without proper authorisation and was subsequently destroyed, as it was deemed invalid by the DCA itself. It was not just destroyed by his mother. According to the official FINA website, no FINA DC rule violations can result therefrom. This means that Sun did actually not break any of the rules or regulations of FINA, meaning that Horton did not actually have any valid reason to protest. Also, if stopping drug cheaters was really what Horton cared about, then he would have done something else that would have a much larger impact, such as a meeting with the FINA doping committee to discuss making their processes harsher. If he was desperate to make his own protest, he could have done it somewhere else besides this one swimming competition, and then he would have not broken any rules and still get his competition heard, as then it would not have broken any rules. He could even have done it online through social media. This shows that Mack Horton was not necessarily protesting against drug cheaters after all, just as certain athletes who may not actually have cheated. The third of the themes put forward by the affirmative team was that Mack Horton's protest should be lauded because he had the right to protest, if he wanted to. This is actually false, as he didn't really have as much a right to protest as it looks, and just because he had the right doesn't mean that we should all celebrate it. The first affirmative speaker tried to tell you that it's fair to assume he was doping, as he'd done it once before and he would do it again. This is misguided because despite serving a suspension due to a doping incident once in 2014, it does not mean that he's guilty this time. Every person deserves redemption, and this is the benefit of the doubt, as well as it being innocent until proven guilty. FINA states in its official website that while FINA respects the principle of freedom of speech, it has to be conducted in the right context. This is not the right context. As in all major sports organisations, our athletes and their entourages are aware of their responsibilities to respect regulations and not to make personal gestures. This proves that although freedom of speech is a valid concept, there are restrictions put on it at these such events. Furthermore, just because someone has the right to protest, it doesn't mean that they should be lauded. We don't have to praise someone just because they have the right to. Okay, so our first speaker, Georgia, has outlined that Sun Yang has not actually been proven guilty and that Mack's actions highlight a double standards. And Zoe has told you that Mack Horton was showing bad sportsmanship. It should now be obvious to you that Mack Horton's protest should not be lauded, as it was certainly nothing to celebrate. Thank you.